Welcome, dear listeners, to History with Herodotus, where we embark on a journey through the annals of time, uncovering the hidden treasures of our collective past. Today we find ourselves standing at the threshold of one of the most pivotal events in the history of the Americas, the Battle of Tenochtitlán. This epic clash of cultures, which would forever alter the course of human history, is a tale of conquest, sacrifice, and transformation. As we delve into the origins of this fateful encounter, let us first set our gaze upon the majestic valley of Mexico, where the mighty Aztec Empire once flourished. It was here, in the early 16th century, that the seeds of conflict were sown. The year was 1519, and the Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés had arrived on the shores of Mexico, bearing gifts, guns, and an unyielding ambition to claim the riches of the New World for his own. We find ourselves in the midst of a bustling metropolis, with the sounds of Aztec merchants hawking their wares, the scent of copal incense wafting through the air, and the majestic pyramids of the Templo Mayor rising above the city. To understand the precursors to this pivotal event, we must examine the complex web of alliances and rivalries that existed between the various city-states and tribes of Mesoamerica. The Aztecs had built their empire through a series of conquests, beginning with the founding of Tenochtitlan in 1325 by the Mexica people. Over time, they expanded their dominion, incorporating neighboring tribes such as the Tlaxcalans, the Huaxotzincas, and the Cholulans into their empire. However, not all city-states were willing to submit to Aztec rule, and tensions simmered beneath the surface. In 1517, the Spanish explorer Francisco Hernández de Córdoba led an expedition to the Yucatan Peninsula, where he encountered the Maya civilization. Although this initial foray was unsuccessful, it marked the beginning of Spanish interest in the region. The following year, Juan de Grijalva led a second expedition to the Mexican coast, where he encountered the Totonac people, who were subject to the Aztecs. The Spanish were impressed by the wealth and sophistication of the Aztec Empire, and began to plan a larger expedition to conquer this new land. It was against this backdrop that Hernán Cortés set out on his fateful journey in 1519, with a small band of soldiers, horses, and cannons. Cortés had been appointed by the Spanish governor of Cuba, Diego de Velázquez, to lead an expedition to Mexico, with the goal of claiming the region for Spain and converting the native population to Christianity. As we explore the historical context of the Battle of Tenochtitlan, it becomes clear that the Aztecs were not a monolithic entity, but rather a complex society with its own internal divisions and conflicts. The Tlaxcalans, who had long been enemies of the Aztecs, saw the arrival of the Spanish as an opportunity to ally themselves with a powerful new force. The Tlaxcalan leader, Xicotencatl, would play a crucial role in the events that unfolded, as would other key figures such as Moctezuma II, the enigmatic and often contradictory Aztec emperor. As we navigate the intricate landscape of Mesoamerican politics, it becomes clear that the Battle of Tenochtitlan was not simply a clash between two monolithic forces, but rather a complex and multifaceted conflict involving numerous players and interests. The stage is now set for a drama that will unfold over the coming weeks and months, a tale of courage, cunning, and conquest that will forever alter the course of human history. The Aztec Empire, with its sophisticated system of writing, architecture, and governance, was about to collide with the expansive ambitions of the Spanish Empire. Welcome back to History with Herodotus, where we continue our journey through the annals of time, exploring the pivotal events that shaped the Battle of Tenochtitlan. Today, we delve into the heart of the conflict, witnessing the rise of a new era in the Americas, one that would be marked by the fusion of two great cultures and the birth of a new world. As the Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés and his men marched towards the Aztec capital, they were met with a mixture of curiosity and hostility. The Aztecs, under the enigmatic leadership of Moctezuma II, were unsure how to respond to the arrival of these strange and powerful newcomers. Meanwhile, the Tlaxcalans, who had long been enemies of the Aztecs, saw an opportunity to ally themselves with the Spanish and gain a strategic advantage in their ongoing struggle against their neighbors. In November 1519, Cortés and his men arrived at the gates of Tenochtitlan, where they were greeted by Moctezuma II himself. The Aztec emperor, resplendent in his finery, welcomed the Spanish with gifts and hospitality, but beneath the surface, tensions simmered. The Spanish were amazed by the sophistication and grandeur of the Aztec capital, with its intricate system of canals, aqueducts, and pyramids. However, they also saw an opportunity to exploit the divisions within the Aztec Empire and to claim its riches for themselves. As the days passed, Cortés and his men became increasingly embroiled in the complex politics of the Aztec court. They formed alliances with various factions, including the Tlaxcalans, and began to manipulate the internal divisions of the empire to their advantage. Meanwhile, Moctezuma II walked a delicate tightrope, trying to balance his own power and influence against the growing threat posed by the Spanish. In 1520, the situation came to a head when Cortés ordered the arrest of Moctezuma II, citing his involvement in a plot against the Spanish. The Aztec emperor was taken prisoner, and the Spanish began to consolidate their control over the city. However, this move would ultimately prove to be a fatal mistake, as it sparked a wave of resistance among the Aztecs and their allies. The Tlaxcalans, who had initially allied themselves with the Spanish, began to question their decision as they realized that the conquistadors were not the liberators they had claimed to be. Instead, they saw that the Spanish were determined to impose their own brand of Christianity and culture on the indigenous population, suppressing the native traditions and customs that had existed for centuries. As tensions escalated, the Aztecs launched a series of rebellions against the Spanish, led by figures such as Cuauhtémoc, who would eventually become the last emperor of the Aztec Empire. The Spanish, however, were able to maintain their grip on power through a combination of military force and strategic alliances with other indigenous groups. In 1521, after a brutal and devastating siege, the Spanish finally captured Tenochtitlan, marking the end of the Aztec Empire and the beginning of a new era in the Americas. The city was left in ruins, its once majestic pyramids and temples reduced to rubble. The native population had been decimated by disease, war, and forced labor, and the Spanish had established themselves as the dominant power in the region. As we reflect on the Battle of Tenochtitlan, it becomes clear that this was not simply a clash between two monolithic forces, but rather a complex and multifaceted conflict involving numerous players and interests. The fusion of two great cultures, which would eventually give rise to the modern nation of Mexico, was marked by violence, exploitation, and tragedy. However, it also laid the foundations for a new and vibrant culture, one that would blend the traditions of Europe and the Americas in ways both unexpected and profound. Join me next as we explore the aftermath of the Battle of Tenochtitlan and the long-term consequences of this pivotal event in American history. Welcome back to our podcast, where we're exploring the fascinating history of the Battle of Tenochtitlan and its enduring legacy in modern Mexico. As the Spanish established their control over the conquered territories, they began to impose their own brand of Christianity, language, and culture on the indigenous population. The native people were forced to adopt European customs, and their traditional ways of life were suppressed. The Spanish also introduced new technologies, such as the wheel and iron tools, which revolutionized agriculture and commerce in the region. One of the most significant consequences of the conquest was the devastating impact of diseases introduced by the Europeans, such as smallpox, measles, and influenza. These diseases spread rapidly among the native population, who had no immunity to them, and decimated entire communities. It's estimated that the population of Mexico declined by as much as 90% in the first century after the conquest. The Spanish also established a new colonial order, with the city of Mexico becoming the capital of the Viceroyalty of New Spain. The city was rebuilt in the European style, with grand architecture, plazas, and cathedrals. The indigenous population was forced to adapt to this new urban landscape, and many were relocated to the outskirts of the city or forced to work in mines and on plantations. Despite the trauma and disruption caused by the conquest, the native people of Mexico continued to resist and adapt to their new circumstances. Many preserved their traditional customs and practices, often in secret, and others found ways to incorporate European elements into their own culture. The result was a unique and vibrant cultural fusion, which would eventually give rise to the modern nation of Mexico. The legacy of the Aztec Empire can still be seen today in the many ruins and artifacts that remain throughout Mexico. The pyramids of Teotihuacan, the temples of Tulum, and the palaces of Palenque are just a few examples of the incredible architectural achievements of the Aztecs. The indigenous people of Mexico continue to celebrate their heritage and cultural identity, and the country remains proud of its rich and complex history. As we reflect on the Battle of Tenochtitlan and its aftermath, it's clear that this was a pivotal moment in American history, one that had far-reaching consequences for the indigenous population, the Spanish colonizers, and the modern nation of Mexico. The story of the Aztec Empire is one of resilience, adaptability, and cultural fusion, and it continues to inspire and fascinate us today. Join me next time as we explore more fascinating topics in history. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.